Bom dia a todos. Good morning, everybody. My name is John Dodrell. I'm the British Consul General here in São Paulo and Director of UK Trade and Investment. And it gives me huge pleasure to welcome our guest of honor who's with us here in Brazil for a few days, our Secretary of State, Senior Cabinet Minister, Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, the Right Honourable Sajid Javid MP, and I would like to invite the Minister to come to the microphone and say a few words of introduction. Please, Secretary of State.
Good morning, everyone. Now, over the past couple of weeks, we've seen some great Brazilian players competing on the world field, and a few English ones too. But you know, these stars of the World Cup, as we know, it's fantastic to see that competition here in Brazil, but it's not what we're going to focus on this morning. We're here to talk about global business and why the time is right, I think, for Brazil's top players to bring their talents to the UK. Questions are, why the UK, and why now? Well, the UK government has had a relentless focus on a long-term plan to turn around the British economy, getting people back to work, boosting growth, and cutting the budget deficit. And right from the start, we recognize that the way to achieve this isn't through more public spending and more public debt. The only way you can grow an economy in a sustainable, long-term way is having conditions under which the private sector can thrive, the engine for growth. So we've been working tirelessly to support business leaders in the UK and investors from overseas. We're cutting red tape, we're cutting regulation, we're giving you the flexibility and the freedom to run your companies in the way you want to run them. We're cutting corporation tax. It's 21% now, from 28% when the government changed 4 years ago. It'll be 20% this time next year. That's the lowest corporation tax rate in the G20. We've got other tax breaks, for example, on R&D spending and patents, so that you're not penalized for the innovations that you develop in the UK. We're committed to building the North-South rail link, a high-speed rail link that will seamlessly connect companies in London with those in the Midlands and the north of the UK. And my own department, DCMS, is investing hundreds of millions of pounds in bringing superfast broadband to homes and businesses in every corner of the country. We already have the widest coverage of superfast broadband of any European country, but we believe we need to go much further. This is 21st century infrastructure for a truly globalized age. It's all part of that long-term economic plan. And it's a plan that I think I can say is working. The IMF and the OECD say that our economy is growing faster than any other industrialized nation, and it's creating jobs faster than any other G7 country. Inflation is lower than at any time since 2009, currently at 1.7%. And the UK is both the highest placed G20 country in the Global Innovation Index and a top 10 nation in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business rankings. Combine this with our easy access to markets in the EU, North America, the Middle East, and Asia, it is not hard to see why so many companies are coming to the UK. We're Europe's #1 destination for foreign direct investment and home to the headquarters of 70% of European firms. Indeed, since 2010, over 10 multinationals have moved their headquarters to the UK. In the 3 years to 2013, the number of Brazilian companies investing in the UK also rose by over a third. Of course, the reasons for doing more business in Britain aren't just economic reasons. We're home to some of the most multicultural cities in the world, including a substantial Brazilian community. When the World Cup kicked off earlier this month, if you'd gone along to Trafalgar Square in the heart of London, there was a sea of yellow and green as thousands of people came together to celebrate a special Brazil Day. With William and Oscar plying their trade at Chelsea, to Bradesco and Petrobras opening offices in London, there are already global players from Brazil right across the UK. Now today, we're going to be talking about how to make those ties even stronger still. And we're lucky to have with us today some very special guests that will help us do just that. So I'm delighted to welcome Sir Roger Bone, the President of Boeing UK, Sir John Sorrell of the Sorrell Foundation, Alton Barberino from Stefanini, and Mauricio Viana, CEO of MJV Technology. We'll be hearing from them all very shortly, but first, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to our host and moderator today, Fiespe's Thomas Zanato. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Javed. It's an honor for Fiesp to be here today. The Minister has just listed 3 conditions that are essential for economy of a country to prosper. Education, which England has a lot, infrastructure, and stable rules and low taxes. I think those, so I believe you are very much on the right track. But since the Minister has only a few more minutes to stay with us, we wonder if there are any questions. He would like to take some questions from the audience, please. Any questions? Anybody? Yes, please, sir. I would appreciate if you could identify yourself and say. Tem um microfone?
Yeah. My name is Marcos Freitas. I'm from the FAPI Foundation. And my question to you...
Could you take this one, because
okay.
That's not working.
Good morning, sir. My name is Marcos Freitas. I'm from FAPI, an educational institution here in Brazil. And my question is this. How have you done these measures that you have implemented in the UK to lower taxes? And how have you done that politically so that the country could understand that this was necessary for its growth? Your fiscal reform.
Yes, thank you. Actually, it's a very good question, because when the government changed in 2010, we didn't just have a budget deficit, but we had the largest budget deficit in the G20. It was over 11% of GDP, which was, as you can see, hugely significant. So we had to find ways to both set out how we're going to cut that deficit, and at the same time, how do we make the country more competitive, because becoming more competitive means cutting taxes, where some people were arguing you need to increase taxes to try and deal with the deficit. But our view was that when you have taxes that have risen to a certain level, when you actually start cutting them, you'll raise more in revenue rather than raise less. Right? It's what is often been referred to as the Laffer Curve, Arthur Laffer, and I think there's plenty of evidence of, after a certain point, if you keep raising taxes, you actually achieve the reverse objective, which is you actually raise less revenue, not more. We found that, for example, with the income tax rate as well. The top income tax rate when we came to office was 50%. And we cut that to 45%, and we found that within a year, and certainly 2 years following, we were raising more revenue from the richest people in Britain, not less, by cutting taxes. And our approach to business taxes has been very similar, and we carried out an analysis. We had some independent bodies look at it too, to show that if you cut taxes on business, you will generate more business activity, both domestically and overseas activity coming in, and you can actually raise more. Now, with business taxes, obviously there's a cycle, there's a lag, but the evidence is showing that the government's approach has been right and correct.
Any more questions? I have, you have one here? Yes, please. Douglas. No, right.
No, Doug, after you.
No, apart from selling the UK here in Brazil on your trip, what else do you hope to achieve with the Brazilian government, and what lessons do you think the current Brazilian government might learn from the UK today?
Well, first thing I'd say is that the first time I came to Brazil was back in the early 1990s, when I used to be an investment banker in New York, and I used to do a lot of business in Latin America. Brazil was obviously one of the key countries. And I think Brazil, its economy, its approach has improved tremendously since those days. And Brazil has seen significant improvements in terms of growth, in terms of relieving poverty and opportunity. So there's been a huge amount of progress, and I think most people would recognize that. But like Britain, I think every country can see there's always more to do. And I think the more Brazil is open to the rest of the world, to trading with the rest of the world, countries like Britain and many others, that can lead to further improvement. So I say an open economy, and I know that is the Brazil government's approach, and that's very welcome. And we've certainly found in our dealings with the government, it's been a very positive approach, and we're trying to work hard to see what other sectors can we cooperate and learn more about.
Secretary of State, it's been my pleasure to spend quite a bit of time over the last 2 or 3 days with you, and I've been very interested to hear about your own personal story and your life story, and how about your career in business and then going into politics and your start in life. I wonder if you'd be willing to share a little bit of that to the audience, because I do think it's got relevance to Brazilian society as well. Thank you.
How long have we got? Well, I'll give you a 1-minute version. So I started out in, obviously, my parents were immigrants to the UK, from my father from India, my mother from Pakistan. I was born in the UK in a town called Rochdale, and I went to my local state school. I got the opportunity to be the first of my family to go to university. That allowed me to get a job with, my first job was with Chase Manhattan Bank, and I managed to, I don't really, you look back and you wonder how, but I managed to get my first job in New York, and that's why I started looking at Latin American economies. The area I worked in, actually, in those days, it used to be called LDC debt trading, LDC meaning less developed country debt trading, and now that's known as emerging markets. I worked on, my first contact with Brazil was with what were called Brady bonds at the time, which was defaulted commercial bank debt that had been turned into tradable securities. I worked a lot on that. I started trading those bonds, and it gave me a desire to work more with emerging markets, not just in Latin America. I moved to London with Deutsche Bank, and I did the same type of business in Russia after the Soviet Union had collapsed, in Eastern Europe, Central Europe. And then with Deutsche Bank, I moved to Asia, and I did business in emerging Asia, including China and India, significant amounts of business, both trading and private equity. And then I gave that all up to get elected in 2010. And I joined the government, and I've served both as economic secretary and financial secretary, which is in the finance minister jobs. And then recently I took this job in the cabinet. But I think that what it gives me an insight on, which is probably not, cannot be said by most of the ministers in the UK government, is that I've spent a long time in business and investment. I understand the business environment. I also am starting to understand the political environment. I think there's still a lot more for me to learn. But I think it helps when we as a country are approaching policies and trying to see what more can we do. We talked earlier, the gentleman asked about taxes, business taxes, and I'd say our approach is probably different to many other countries. In a neighbouring country to the UK, their policy has been to raise taxes to try and raise more revenue, and they found that businesses are leaving, entrepreneurs are leaving, tax revenues are falling, where our policy, for example, has been to learn from past mistakes, both in Britain and in other countries, and adopt policies that are much more unashamedly pro-business, because when business grows, it creates jobs, it helps the whole of society, and we believe, and as I started at the beginning of my speech, the engine for growth is not the public sector, it's not politicians, it is the private sector, and that's what we embrace.
Good morning. Suzy Ferreira from Black and White Capital. I would like to have an idea in which sectors are you looking into investments from Brazil into the UK? Which particular sectors are more attractive? And also, can you give me an idea, some explanation on a tax relief policy in the UK, whereby high-earning individuals, they can invest in startups and get a tax relief, I think of 25%, something like that. Can you give me an explanation on that? I'm not entirely sure, but I would like more details. Thank you.
Yes, well, in terms of sectors for investment, and we're open to any sector. We are an economy that our biggest sectors in the UK, for example, today would be your financial industries is probably the biggest in terms of a cluster. The creative industry sector, one that I oversee now in my government job, is very big for the creative industries. That means everything from theatre to film to music to television to design, fashion. That's big, and actually for the UK we have the largest creative industry sector of any country in Europe as a portion of our GDP. But also technology. Already, you'll hear later from the panel from companies, technology companies from Brazil that are invested in the UK. I mean, all sectors are growing. In fact, you have these technical surveys called the PMI surveys that monitor growth independently, and they divide the UK economy, like most, into 4 sectors. We have seen record growth in all 4 sectors for over 2 years now. So all I'd say is that I think, again, going back to my point about politicians, it's not for politicians to pick sectors. That's for the market to decide, and that's driven by private investors, private businesses. But the good news is, whatever your business, everything in Britain is growing, and it's showing opportunities. And it's also a fantastic base to grow into other economies. So I would certainly urge you to think of the UK as a base, as a hub for international business. So many businesses moving to the UK or beefed up their operations, not because just the opportunities they see in the UK, because of what they see in the EU, the time zone wise. You can do business with Asia, with North America, you can travel everywhere easily, and lots of business comes to you. So it's not just you have to go out from there chasing business. The business leaders from around the world all come through London, and there cannot be one serious company in the world, large company, that does not travel through London or the UK at some point during each year, and so lots of business comes to you. That's why you have so many companies that will put their headquarters in the UK. In terms of tax relief, I think you're referring to tax relief for people to invest in the UK. Yep. Yeah, there's a number. Yeah, so there are a number that I could pick. So, for example, we have something called venture capital trusts, which give you tax relief of between 20 to 25% of the investment for, as it sounds, for venture capital type investments under certain rules. We have an enterprise investment scheme as well, which does something similar, and something else that we started quite recently is a seed investment scheme, which is basically seed capital to the sort of highest risk category of companies right on startup. So there are a number of these tax reliefs, and they all seem to be working in terms of attracting investment. But there are also a number of changes we made to some of the taxes in certain businesses. So one of the things we did early on, as an example, was for the film industry. It's an industry that we looked at, the global film industry, and it's a very mobile industry, and we had a lot of the talent in the UK in terms of visual effects and directors, producers, but we just felt we had to compete harder, and we introduced a tax relief scheme for film industry. And what we found since then is that it's one of the fastest growing areas. We've seen a huge movement of major international film producers to the UK. Just a couple of weeks ago, for example, I went to the set of the new Star Wars movie, which I can't tell you anything about, who's in it, what's happening, because I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. But I can tell you what they announced was that because it's been so successful already for these companies, is that on that occasion, Lucasfilm announced they're going to make a new series of Star Wars, spin-off from the UK. So if you've seen, many of you might have seen the film Gravity. If you saw that big Oscar-winning movie recently, if you haven't, I definitely encourage you to see it, but made in the UK. So there's that's a sort of success story where we had targeted tax relief. And also I mentioned in the speech the patent box the idea, which is where we said if you invent something in the UK, then we will have a separate tax regime for that, which is a 10% rate. So you will get all your profits, you can sort of ring fence it, and all your profits that you make on that innovation will be taxed at a rate of 10%. There's no other major country in the world that will give you a similar tax incentive to develop and create in the UK.
Any other question? Yes, please.
Ashley Jenner, Ashley Investimentos. It's an asset management company. Well, not only has the UK been growing faster than most of its neighbors, its currency is also the strongest. The pound is now firmly at 1.7 against the dollar and hovering just below 80 cents against the euro. And now, how do you reconcile this with the need for increasing exports, for example, which I know is another major challenge for the UK?
Yes. Well, I think having its own independent currency as opposed to some of the UK's neighbours has been a huge source of strength for the UK. And the advantage you started off in your question is one of the reasons I think that the UK economy is recovering much better and much faster than any of its European neighbours is because it has a flexible exchange rate that is determined by the market, but it's its own exchange rate, its own currency suited to the UK's own needs. The flip side of that, as you rightly point out, is when the currency does get stronger, it will could have an impact on the trade balance. But our view has again been sort of go back to basic principles. Exchange rate should be determined by the markets based on supply and demand. It is not something for the government to intervene in or to have a view on. Where it does put pressure on certain exporters, what the evidence is that those exporters will, many of them will sort of, for long term, they would hedge some of their exposure, but even where they haven't, they will over time start adjusting to that and take their own view on it. I think when politicians get involved in the exchange rate and try to determine whether it's too high or too low, it actually makes the situation worse. So I've got my own private views on what might happen to the exchange rate, but they're not really relevant, I think, to this discussion. I think the important thing is that the markets and businesses understand what the government's policy is on exchange rates, which is free market, and they can operate within that environment.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe
Is there one more?
There is one more? Okay, take one more. Last one.
Hi, John. Eduardo Tess from Tess Lawyers, São Paulo, Brazil. What are your views on the Scottish referendum, and if Scotland breaks from the UK, what could be the reflect in the UK economy?
Yeah, well, my view is that Britain is a lot stronger together, so I hope that when the Scottish people decide in this referendum, so for those, just make sure everyone is aware there will be a referendum in September this month by the Scottish people to decide whether they want to remain part of the UK or become an independent country. So I strongly believe that UK, everyone is stronger, UK, England, Scotland, Wales, all the component parts of the UK, if we remain together. But that's a decision for the Scottish people. I think it's the most important decision this generation of Scots are being asked to make for probably in Scotland's history over 300 years. This is one of the most important moments for Scotland. The second part of your question is what could happen economically if they decide to leave. I mean, I think it's I don't think there's any advantage trying to sort of forecast what may or may not happen, because my presumption is that I think we will work hard. The UK government is working hard to make sure the country stay together, and it's on that basis that I operate. There have been many people that have tried to sort of speculate what may or may not happen, and there has been economic arguments put into the debate. So, for example, the UK government recently made clear that if Scotland was to leave, that it wouldn't be able to keep the pound as its currency. And I think it's important to set out these types of facts so that when people make this decision, they have the full facts in front of them and they understand the sort of full consequences of what is a very, very important decision.
I cannot resist to make one question to you, Minister. You know that the private sector is pushing very much for a free trade agreement, private sector in Brazil, between Mercosur and European Union, and that includes England. What's your view on that?
Sorry, just the free trade agreement between Mercosur and the EU?
EU, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think the more free trade there is with regions around the world for the EU, the better we all are. I think one of the things the EU can improve on is to be more open to the rest of the world and not be so insular in on itself. So, for example, right now, Britain is taking the lead in helping to negotiate a free trade agreement with the United States. And these things take a number of years, but we found that where you do succeed, have a free trade agreement, it doesn't take long for all sides in that to benefit. And I think the more we have in terms of the EU and free trade with Latin American economies, it will help us all.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you, Minister, very much for answering us questions. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks a lot.
Ok, então, I would like to call Ailton Barberino, VP from Global Operations Stefanini, Mauricio Viana, CEO, MJV Technology and Innovation, Sir Roger Bone, President from Boeing, United Kingdom, and Sir John Sorrow, Co-Chairman, the Sorrow Foundation. Thank you. Okay, the idea here today is to be very dynamic. So I'll give immediately the floor to you and then try to moderate and give some comments. I would like just to say a few words. I mean, the Brazilian companies are trying more and more to go abroad, both pushed by the Brazilian government, some big groups in some specific sectors, and Brazil has come up with some what they call champions, like in meat packing and mining, steel, other sectors. But we have a lot of other companies going abroad successfully. We have two of them here in the United Kingdom, and we have Boeing UK and Sorrow Foundation, which are very interested also in internationalization and coming the other way to Brazil. As the minister just pointed out, Britain has strong advantages. Is undeniable that the area of the world that's coming up now very strong is the Asia Pacific, and right now, for example, is 1:30 p.m. in London, is 8:30 p.m. in Beijing, and now it's 9:30 here. This for people who travel a lot, this makes a lot of difference. And when you are in London, you can talk with Brazil and Beijing, and both offices are still open. But there are all other advantages we're talking about here. I would like to pass on to Ailton Barberino, VP Global Operations from Stefanini. Stefanini is an IT company who present very successful and is present in the UK successfully, I hope. And then we'll go on. Thank you.
So, thank you very much for having invited us for this this talk show. I think it's an important thing to say that for us, since the beginning, to go to be global was a decision that is like to survive in this market. So because if you look at Brazil, many global companies are operating here. They are serving our customers. So if you are not there serving our customers and also their customers, I think it would be like to be out of the game. You know? So Stefanini is today the turf more internationalized company, Brazilian company, based on the FDC ranking. And so along these years, we have faced many difficulties in terms of to go to the international market, because you know Brazil, if you are an IT service company, you first need to sell Brazil as a branding. Then you need to convince them that Brazil is a place that produces IT, that produces a good IT, and we do this. And many, so if you take some examples in our financial sector, we have a lot of good examples in terms of how to innovate through information technology, how to create big solutions through information technology. But we need to first to convince other people in other countries that we make sense for them, so we can do something different for them. And it was our main challenge along these last 18 years of internationalization program. And today we can say that all efforts that we have done was great, so it's successful. We learned a lot. So we are in UK since 2005. It was so almost 10 years. It was an amazing experience starting there. And today, I think after some acquisitions we have done along the world, in some countries, that includes the UK, we have now a different position as a Brazilian company operating outside Brazil. So I think we have a lot of experiences to exchange with all companies, and we have done this with other IT service companies in Brazil who wants to internationalize their operations. And So that's some things that I like to point out. So it's very different when we talk about a company like Boeing, for example. Here, Sir Roger, we used to say that we need to do many things with the Boeing flying. If you understand that, we do this. We learn things when we are running our own company. We are doing new things. We are fixing things when we are running our operations day by day. And we did it along these 18 years of internationalization. So I think the main challenges that we have faced are cultural challenges, because when we are a company like Stefanini is a pure energy company. We fight a lot in the market in order to position our company, in order to win bids. When you are starting a new cultures, it's very difficult to operate like you do in Brazil. So we need to learn a lot first. You need to respect other cultures, like you need to respect their behaviors first, then to be successful in any kind of operations in any country. So this is something that we learn a lot. Another thing that we have to learn is that we need to plan very well. We need to make very good plans before we try to do anything in other countries. So we need to study this market, that market. We need to understand competitions. We need to understand cultures. We need to discuss this internally and see if you have or not a good strategy to go there to start this operation. So I think now we have learned a lot of lessons along the years. We are now in a new phase. We are establishing R&D innovation centers in other countries in order to integrate more knowledge. So in order to really take advantage for a global knowledge, so taking ideas, solutions, innovative solutions from other countries and introducing in our own country, in our operations, or in our customers' operations. So this is a new phase of our company. We started as an IT service company, but we are now an ITC company, because 2 years ago, we started new business in the telecommunication area space. So we are now an ITC service company. So that's some summarize of what Stefanini have done, and so I think we have a lot of experience to exchange with our colleagues.
Thank you very much, Ailton. So we see that the IT industry in Brazil gained a differential because it had hyperinflation, so the financial industry had to have very sophisticated IT solutions, because you have money that devaluates 2% per day. You had that in the past, and from this differential starting point, they went to England, and it comes up immediately the cultural effect, the fact that you have to plan and have a strategy, and now they're starting to invest in R&D outside, and very interesting. Mauricio Viana, CEO MJV Technology. What is your experience in England going abroad?
Hello, good morning. Thank you for inviting us here. Well, I think first of all, as Ailton mentioned, the culture differences is something that is very critical to understand before you actually start doing business in another country. For us, we are a medium-sized company of 330 consultants, working in the design and business transformations using design and gamification techniques to solve business problems. So for us, as a medium-sized company, we decided to internationalize again because of survival. Nowadays, in a more and more competitive market, if you don't have a global presence, if you don't bring oxygen from outside, you're basically dead. And it's interesting how, because of the internet, and now it's such a globalized world and has flattened the play field where smaller and medium-sized companies can now start to compete, and so that made things easier for us in terms of being able to go outside and start communicating our services. But nevertheless, it's still very hard. It's not an easy, especially in our case where we decided to, instead of follow the path of acquisitions, we decided actually to do an organic growth. So it's starting a new country, understanding the culture, getting to know people there. It takes time, but it's worthwhile. So definitely you have to be strong financially. You know, if you're a medium-sized company, you better have cash to survive in terms of going outside the country. Even though it's easier because of the internet, you still have to do investments locally. Another challenge that we face, first of all, I mean, you see an event like this from UKTI, which is fantastic, but I think the Brazilian government, and maybe it's an opportunity also for UKTI to partner with the Brazilian government, especially when we're talking about the possibility of Brazilian companies to invest in the UK, is for the Brazilian government somehow to be able to incentivize and to support more the Brazilian companies down there. When you talk about big Brazilian companies in the UK, you don't see that much of a support in terms of hiring Brazilian suppliers for these companies, and even from the Brazilian government, sometimes, I mean, they try not to be, you know, I mean, they're very, I don't know how to say that in isento. They, you know, they basically, the support is sometimes not there. So I think definitely it's important for UKTI to be able to actually promote maybe some types of events together with Apex. I don't know. We will have to. I'll be glad to discuss that together. I think one thing about the culture, just a short story, was interesting when I talked to somebody there. This lady she was actually Brazilian, and she was telling me about the way that sometimes, and I don't think this is a rule. Of course, there's always, maybe she's completely wrong, where when you go out on a date to watch some type of game, and you have your boyfriend and boyfriend and girlfriend, and the boyfriend goes upstairs to buy hot dogs. She asked me, "Do you know how many hot dogs the British would buy?" And I said, "Well, how many?" She said, "One for him." And she said, and I asked, "Why is that?" "Well, because if he bought two, she might ask, 'Why did you buy this? I didn't ask you.'" And while in Brazil, if a boyfriend did this, I think he would be killed. At least my wife would kill me. So there are a lot of cultural differences, like doing business also in clubs. That's very interesting. You know, for me was to find out this. Of course, there are clubs in Brazil, but not as I mean, you go all over London, and it's very nice when you go to those. You're basically a lot of arts and paintings and very sophisticated and very designed actually inside. It's a different way of doing business, not only inside clubs but network meetings. That's another thing about internationalization, where people are more and more. I mean, they just cold calls just doesn't work. You have to have a unique value proposition. You have to have. Otherwise, if you decide to internationalize, you better have a unique value proposition, because it's so competitive out there, especially in the design field where we are in terms of helping companies to transform their business. And that's why we brought in gamification, which is bringing the concept of games to solve business problems, which is a fairly new concept. It's only 3 years old, for solving business problems, not for HR, which is something already for a long time HR has used games, but to solve business problems, this is fairly new. So that's a unique value proposition that we bring. So another thing I would pay attention, if you're deciding to go to the UK, better have a unique value proposition there.
Thank you, Mauricio. So, to the points that were made by Ailton, Mauricio brings a few other points, which is financial strength, and again it comes up what he calls unique proposition. That was the differential of Stefanini having IT solutions for financial industry, and I'll come back later after I go through our other two speakers about why UK, because I would like to listen a little bit more. But now we go on to another type of company. Is one of the biggest companies in the world it's global. And the president of Boeing UK, Sir Roger Bone, was, I understand, ambassador, Her Majesty's ambassador to Brasilia once. So he has unique insight of working for a huge American company in the UK and a good insight of Brazil. So I'd like to hear a little bit about internationalization from you, sir. So thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Is this hello? It's okay. Is it working? Okay. Yeah, I can hear it just now. Good. Thomas, thank you, and thank you for that that introduction. I think that what you've been listening to so far is two very interesting stories of entrepreneurship and of expansion overseas by two very distinguished Brazilian companies, and that they set the benchmark in a way for what needs to be done. Because let's acknowledge that we live in an increasingly globalized economy, an increasingly competitive economy. And those companies which are going to grow and succeed need to think in terms of their marketplace, not just inside the country of origin, but overseas as well. And there are two important distinctions to be made about that. Becoming international is not just about exporting. That may be a first step, but exporting is not becoming internationalized or globalized. The stage beyond that is actually learning to invest in a country overseas, to operate in a country overseas, and to become part of the landscape of that country in which you're operating, in order to sharpen your business profile, to increase your competitivity, to increase your profits, to increase your revenue. And by doing that, you actually also increase your ability to compete in your own markets as well. I work for a very large global company, as Thomas has said, It is huge. It's an $80 to $90 billion company, and we deal in some of the biggest products in the world, with huge aeroplanes and large bits of military equipment, and also a wide range of services. But even for a company of that size, we have had to learn to globalize and not just to sell overseas. And that is very much the story of my company inside the United Kingdom. We started 75 years ago in the UK, exporting to the UK, providing some services to the UK from overseas. But it's only in much more recent years that we have learned to become an integral part of the industrial landscape in the UK. Although we don't manufacture under our own name in the UK, we are now heavily dependent on the supply chain in the UK, heavily dependent on the manufacturing sector there. We invest heavily in research and development in the UK. And we have built up an onshore business in the UK worth billions of dollars now, which consists of providing services, providing through-life support, and providing outsourcing help and advice to our principal customer in the UK, which is the Ministry of Defence. So we are, in every sense of the word, a British company as well as being an American. domestic market, and you have ambitions, as you should, to expand that business and to build it overseas, then look to the UK as one of the first places where you try to do that. And you will find that there are lots of people bending over backwards to help you to succeed and to help you make good profits from your overseas business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's good to hear, and I agree with you. UKTI is an excellent organization. I have said that again and again. We've been working a lot with them together at Fiesp, and also maybe was not said here yet. The UK is one of the most innovative countries in the world. According to WIPO, which is the World Intellectual Property Organization, the UK stands among the 3 first countries in the world ahead of United States, for example. So, and now we see also a new thing that I didn't know, that is the second airspace hub in the world, defense and production hub. That's very, this is an industry with a lot of it irradiates in the whole economy, so it's very impressive. I'll turn now to Sir John Sorrell, co-chairman of the Sorrell Foundation. I understand that, among other things, you are very much interested in the process of internationalization of companies. So I'd like to hear some of those things from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for inviting me here today. I'd like to start by talking about the psychology of change, and I'd start with my own story, because in 1976 I started a business in the United Kingdom with my wife Frances, who's sitting here in the front row. Very small business to start with, and we gradually grew it, and we were actually part of the wave in the UK which created our creative industries sector, which the Minister referred to earlier. But it was very early days back then in the 70s. And as we grew the business, we started to think about internationalization. But of course, like everyone who is looking at great change, we were afraid. And I'm very interested in the fear factor for companies who are thinking about internationalizing, about moving abroad, doing things outside their own country for the first time. Because we're all afraid of change, of different cultures, of the difference in the legal systems, in the tax regimes, in the employment laws, and in the culture of different countries. And we were afraid like anybody else, but we gradually started to put our toe in the water, and we opened offices in Europe, and then we opened in the United States of America. And we reaped great rewards from internationalization, partly because it made all of our staff, all of the people who work for us, feel that they were part of something which was much more exciting. You may have a very big home market, but it's incredibly exciting to work internationally and to trade with other nations. We felt that we hadn't really achieved very much just being in the UK, although we were successful there. And because we were part of the development of the creative industries in the UK, we were able to play a part in creating what is now a very important sector in the UK, 71 billion pounds GDP. It employs 2.5 million people. It's the fastest growing sector in the United Kingdom. It's by far the biggest in Europe. And one of the things that's very interesting about the kind of countries it attracts is that they come to the UK for a number of different reasons, and one of which is that there are so many nationalities, so many different people from so many countries living in the UK. It is a very, very multinational country, and you will meet people from your own country and from many others if you come and work there. We run the London Design Festival, which
is the world's biggest design festival. We give the London Design Medal each year. And over the past few years, it's gone to Zaha Hadid, who's from Iraq, to Mark Newson, who's from Australia, to Ron Arad, who's from Israel. All of these people decided to come and set up business and make London their headquarters because they saw it as the most creative nation, the most creative capital in the world. So, like Roger, I do say that there are many reasons for locating in the UK, for becoming part of what you would find is a very, very friendly community and a very friendly society. And I think that counts for a great deal in this world. Not just friendly, but also the culture in the UK is very exciting too. We have more theatres than New York. Did you know that? The music is fantastic, perhaps not as much samba as here in Brazil, but we have that too. And if you like football, you can watch the Premier League, where we have many Brazilian players, as well as not so many good English ones, but many from around the world. So my message really is to say that if you are interested in locating to the UK, do talk to our friends at UKTI. They're absolutely brilliant at helping people. You would be amazed at what they can do to help you. And I think you would find it very rewarding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir John. And we, again, he introduces the fear factor, which maybe if you see that to be successful in internationalization, you have to understand the culture very much, which is easier said than done, have a unique proposition, have a good plan or strategy in place, and to be financially sound. So factors that put together put some fear in people if they have all those or not. But and I understood well why your point of view and Boeing's and yours, but I would like to go back a little bit to you, which we believe was maybe the smaller company here and fully Brazilian, and I would like to know why did you choose UK and what were the main difficulties before that you found that you have to deal with in your internationalization process. Very briefly before we turn to questions from the audience, please.
Well, first of all, definitely, I mean, I couldn't emphasize more the help from UKTI. That is definitely true. They have a very good service in terms of lending, you know, helping companies to lend. They're so responsive. One day I came to I used to be also in my previous life at the board of the American Chamber, and I did visit the consulate there, but I was so impressed with the consular, the embassy and the consulate here, where in one day I was able to visit and talk to 5 different people in different areas. So they're very sharp and really willing to help. About our decision to move to the UK, this is well, first of all, UK is the hub, is a very important hub for Europe and Asia, especially Europe. Like being Brazilian, we have definitely a problem of perception of branding. So if a company, we heard the minister here talking before, where if a company down in Europe or in Asia Googles and tries to understand who does gamification, and he sees an address in Rio de Janeiro or São Paulo, is one thing. Another is if he sees an address in London. So definitely the perception of branding is completely different. So being a hub is I mean, we've been talking to and starting to do business with companies in France and in other countries because of our presence in London. Another and that this was also I cannot say that this was planned, like say, okay, we're going to decide for the UK, but there's a lot of serendipity also. We were chosen by the Brazilian government during the Olympic Games as one of the 12 most innovative companies in Brazil. So we had a stand inside the Brazilian government embassy. And during that period, we really realized the potential of being in London. So it's pretty much in our culture also, the lean startup methodology where we have to experiment and prototype and try things differently. It's amazing how when you I mean, in the UK, the diversity, I mean, we're talking about different nationalities, but the diversity is so incredible. I mean, it has a startup, we haven't talked about this, but technology startups, fantastic, you know, booming in Canary Wharf. I mean, so it's very important also for us in terms of being able to bring some insights from outside, even to Brazil.
Very good. There is another point that I would like to underline that makes even harder for Brazilian companies to go abroad. That's the volatility of our own currency, which it only can be understood by someone that does business in Brazil and the risks that are implied on this. I think now we can turn on for questions from the audiences, and I would like anyone who does a question to identify itself. Thank you. You have here? Yeah, okay.
So again, my name is Marcus Freitas, and my question is this. For the Brazilians and for the British. Is there a British way of doing business on the human side that is different from the Brazilian side? And if you're to single out the Brazilians, what are some of the human factors that you noticed when you went into the UK to do business that were different from the way we do things? And to the British, how would you say, is there a British way of doing business or things that we should look into when dealing with people of Britain? Thank you.
Who's going to take this first? Okay, Sir John.
Thank you. I think that's, is this working? Thank you. I think it's a very good question. I would like to think that the British way of doing business is about honesty, integrity, and trust. And in my business career, I've learned to really value those three things. There is one other aspect as well, which is about creativity. Because I think that if we're looking for partnership in business, then we all want partners who are honest. We want partners who have great integrity. We want partners we can trust. But I think we also like partners who are creative. So when there are problems, then your partner is there to help solve them. And I hope that the British people in the audience agree with me about that, but that's what I believe is in our hearts, doing business.
Well, Sunat.
Well, I absolutely endorse that. I think what I would add is a sense of openness to inward investment, openness to new ideas. You won't find any artificially created barriers in the UK to business coming to invest there. There is a genuine sense of welcome, a genuine sense that competition is natural, a genuine sense that we want you to succeed in investing in our country, because we know that that is not only to your benefit, but to our benefit too, because you make the whole environment of where you're operating more competitive, and the more you do that, the better it is for the consumer in the UK. So I would like to think that it is all those qualities, plus a sense of genuine openness and welcome to new ideas, new people, new investments, new businesses coming to the UK. There is no sense of fear and of rejection of that, quite the contrary.
Thinking in terms of the human side I mean, from the perspective of a Brazilian, it's interesting how I think the way Brazilians like to do business, of course, is I'm not going to say it's different than in Britain, but Brazilians, they I think, in one sense, and this is not to criticize at all, it's just, again, different cultures, but Brazilians are very open in terms of when a Brazilian meets another Brazilian that he knows, at least knows a little bit, he taps into his heart. And that probably, I don't think that's appropriate in Britain. If I meet you and say, and tap into your heart, I don't think you enjoy that. so that's one aspect. Another one is, at least, I mean, I don't think I'm a typical Brazilian in the sense of drinking, because I rarely drink, just a little bit of wine. But again, this is very typical of the British culture to talk over business, also over drinks. Like we sponsored an innovation, the Chief Innovation Summit in April in London, and I was there, and I was quite naive in terms of I found myself naive there, where I said, when I looked at one of our competitors inviting one of the speakers to go out for drinks, and I said, this is not what usually we do here in Brazil. I mean, maybe some Brazilians do, but it's not my case. So that's another. We usually do more informal meetings during lunch, not as a invite people to drinks. Anyway.
I totally agree with the drinks part. I think it's easier to invite them to have a happy hour. But I think one of the main things is British people, they are very open. So it's very easy to establish a relationship with them. And one other thing that is wonderful, they love to teach you. When you are a consulting company like us, and you are starting an operation in a new country for you. And if you're talking about this country, they are the third largest IT market. So to do business in UK is an attractive for any company, every company. But they love to teach you how to do business there, how to understand the market. So I remember the first meetings that we had in UK, it was almost 10 years ago. Every company told us that you need to create a showroom here, because nobody knows, everybody understands that Brazil is a big country and we have big solutions there, but nobody have a Brazilian solution here, so you need to create a showcase, you need to create a showroom to demonstrate your solution. So first, we suggest you to offer something for a company here, for a financial company here, a product, a solution, even for free, but to create your first showroom here in the place. So everybody loves to give you some strategic information, some tips, some suggestions. So that's an amazing thing. We realized since the beginning when we started operations in London. So I think we have learned a lot in UK. And also I have to add that since the beginning UKTI has done a great job there. I think the first week I was in London in 2005, I visited the UKTI 4 times in 1 week. So because well, I received so many informations, and I would like to understand better that. So I called UKTI. So I need another session. So they'll come. So they are very open. So that's the point. It's very easy to establish this relationship and to discuss business with them. And and also if you are doing business there, the main thing is to invite them to visit you here, to know your solutions, your customers as well. So I think the great thing is the relationship.
I would like just to add from my since that I agree that they are very friendly, very easy to do first contacts, but maybe sometimes Brazilians overstep that. They understand wrongly what it means to be friendly, and also other thing that's very important, I think, and I heard that a lot in Britain, how proud they were in the Olympics, not only because of the success of the Olympics, but it was done on budget and on time. Actually, it was done under budget, which for us Brazilians to have major works done under budget is it's something, and so you have to be on time personally and with your proposition. I mean, if you are proposing to do work, you better be on time. And the fact that they are friendly, you don't have to. That doesn't mean that you have to be less professional. You have to be extremely professional, and they take your work very seriously. When he was talking about integrity, trust, even so, you have to mean what you say. And sometimes Brazilians try to say, oh, okay, no, yeah, sure, I'll do that, and then I mean, this something that you should avoid when doing business. That's my understanding of that. Okay, any other questions, please? And if you could also tell who the question is, you should take the question. Thank you.
Hello. Eduardo Tess from São Paulo, and the question is for Sir John Searle. Sir John, you mentioned opening offices in Europe and the United States. So I suppose you didn't open any offices in the Southern Hemisphere, especially Brazil. Is this those points that Tomás raised, such as lack of stability of currency, clear rules, too much of unknown territory for you to adventure in the Southern Hemisphere? Okay, much better. You mentioned opening offices in Europe, in the United States. So I suppose you have not adventured on the Southern Hemisphere, especially Brazil. Is the lack of stability in currency and clear rules too much of unknown territory for you and for British entrepreneurs to adventure to the side of the world?
Expanding business into the Southern Hemisphere, into Brazil and other emerging economies, as well as into the United States.
Thank you. Sorry, the microphone. So I'll try and answer that as best I can, but the fact is that we had grown our business between 1976 and 1997 to the point where we were about to develop into the Southern Hemisphere. But we had a very strong desire to start a charitable foundation to work with young people. And we were actually looking at China, and we were looking at Brazil to open our next offices. But we took a very big strategic decision in our lives that we would actually stop our business and sell it and create some capital to put into a foundation to work with young people. So I'm probably not the best. So today, we don't have that business anymore. Would we expand it to Brazil today? Absolutely, certainly. But in looking at companies that we work with in the UK, it's extraordinary how fast they're moving around the world and setting up offices just about everywhere you can think of, and especially in the emerging markets. China is a very big destination for British companies right now. We know companies who, 10 years ago, a company called Priestman Good, who a product design business, 10 years ago had 100% of their business in the UK. Today, they have no business in the UK. They do 100% outside in the other countries where they have offices. So there is a kind of, in Britain, there is a kind of trading spirit. We're a small island. We've always traded with the world. And we used to go out to do it in boats. We now do it in aeroplanes. But I think that that there is a huge appetite in the UK to open partnerships with people in other countries, and I really feel that very strongly applies to Brazil. I think there's enormous potential. I'm amazed at how little partnership there is at the moment, and I think that the next 10 years could see an explosion of relationships between British companies and Brazilian companies. I sincerely hope that's what will happen. Thank you.
Okay, we are running out of time. Just before passing on to Consul General Dodro for his final remarks, I'd like just to summarize very briefly what we understood here from companies from different sizes and even from Sir Soros Foundation, that first and foremost, to be successful, you have to understand the culture. You better have a unique proposition. That's important because competition is very tough. You have to have a very clear plan and strategy. Remember that strategy has to change as you engage. When you engage, I remember that when Napoleon was in Santa Helena, the British sent their best generals to understand what were his strategies, and he explained how he prepared for the battle, but they wanted to know what the strategy was during the battle. And Napoleon finally said, well, when the battle starts, we engage and then we see. So we have to be very flexible to change also. We have to be financially sound. But we also heard here that the UK has unique advantages for companies all sizes that can be very much like Boeing, very well-established companies like Stefanini, or up-and-comers like MJV. And they have, among all other advantages that were discussed here, I cannot emphasize enough the work that's done by UKTI, which is really excellent. Fiesp has done a lot of ventures, and it has taken delegations out with the help of UKTA. It's an excellent organization. It really does a fantastic job, and I think anyone that's thinking about going abroad should talk to them right on as one of the first steps. So with that said, I'd like to pass on the floor to Consul General Dodro. Thank you.
Well, good morning again, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to thank you all very much indeed for attending this event this morning. I hope that you found it interesting and useful. I was particularly grateful that we had our Minister, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport here, and that he agreed to stay on longer than was initially scheduled, actually, to have that question and answer session. Thank you for asking such stimulating questions. I think he was quite excited, and I had a feeling that that could have gone on a bit longer, but he had to go off to another commitment. But thank you very much for that. I really do think that he made a very compelling case for investment in the UK, covering the key points about taxation, the low rate of corporation tax, Britain as an innovative, forward-looking, multicultural society, the ease of doing business that we have in the UK, and of course the access that we have to Europe and to world markets. But I'd like to thank also particularly our panelists here this morning. Of Stefanini, a very good friend and contact of ours at the consulate here, and very interested to hear his experience of the internationalization of Stefanini, and interesting for me personally to understand this background of the growth of the Brazilian IT services industry in that period of hyperinflation, where it was so critical to have the right solutions available in a timely manner. Mauricio Viana of MJV, thank you very much indeed for your comments, your insights, all extremely helpful. Cultural differences can be dangerous, they can be traps, they can also be fun, and thank you for highlighting that. I think you also identified one of the key advantages of internationalization is that if you go to another market and you can gather ideas and pick up new concepts and actually bring them back to your home country, your home market, and apply them there to great benefit. Sir Roger Bone of Boeing UK, thank you very much indeed, Sir Roger. How fortunate we are to have somebody who is a former British ambassador here to Brazil, now the president of a US multinational company, and leads their UK operation. Thank you very much indeed for your perspectives and illustrating the difference between a company that not just sells into other countries, but is a truly global company, as we heard is the case with Boeing UK. Sir John Sorrell of the Sorrell Foundation, thank you, Sir John. Delighted also to have Lady Frances with us in the audience. I think I'm particularly struck by your reference to the excitement of trading internationally. I think it generally, for people to go and have the opportunity to visit and work in other countries is a fantastic experience. And you mentioned the culture point, to understand different cultures. And in the case of the UK, actually, we have a culture that is very receptive and welcoming to foreign people coming in to do business. So thank you very much indeed to the panelists, and Thomas Zanotto of Fiesp, thank you for moderating so effectively. Fiesp is always a helpful partner to us. We appreciate that, and your insights were extremely useful. So thank you very much indeed for all of that. I was very grateful for the comments about UKTI from some of the panelists. Really do appreciate your kind words. We're here as a team to absolutely help any Brazilian company that would like to invest in the UK. We have a strong team here with Raquel Kibrit, who is the manager of the inward investment side of our UKTI operation, James Sutherland, our intern Flavia Santana, and the project manager Marconi Siqueira and Danilo Silva, who organized the event today. So thanks to them for putting it all together, and also to emphasize that they and I and the team are all absolutely available to help you with any plans to invest in the UK. And once you do invest in the UK, a key part of our offer is that we're then absolutely available to put our other hat on and help you to export from the UK to other markets. And that's a key and important part of our service offering. Finally, I just want to say that I really do feel that the time is right now for internationalization. We've seen a sea change over the last couple of years between the number of Brazilian companies that we've had in our pipeline for internationalization from perhaps 2025 a year or two ago. We did a roadshow last year going around Brazil, and that number has gone up by 100, went up from 25, and we've now got 125 after that roadshow, and since then it's continued to grow, and we're seeing a huge amount of interest. So I think Brazilian companies, it seems to me, from my perspective, many are now getting to the point where they are prepared and wanting to look beyond national boundaries to internationalize, to tackle markets in Europe and beyond. And our message to you is that the UK is the right place to start, the right place to commence your operations, and we have a team here at the consulate that is ready and willing to help you in any way we can. So thank you very much indeed again, and I'd be extremely grateful if you would join us outside in the foyer to share in a brunch with us. But thank you very much, and thanks to the moderator and to our panelists again. Thank you.